Okay, welcome to Kabbalah Explained Simply. I'm Gil Shear, and today we are answering your questions about Kabbalah and spiritual development. Any question you have, ask it. I can already see there's a question here, and I'm going to get to that in a second. Bogdan, it is a good question. Just a quick reminder, if you connect in, if you tune in weekly and you like these videos, then please click that like button, that subscribe button with a little bell, and then first of all you'll get notified when these videos go live, and also the other people will get notified about this as well, because if you like it, then maybe others will like it as well and they'll see it in their feed. So please do that. If you enjoy this, I would appreciate it. And let's jump on to the first question. Okay, actually we already have a few questions. Let me do the first one really quickly. Bogdan is asking, why isn't Kabbalah learned in school? That is a great question, Bogdan. I would even say, start with the basics. Start in school, start teaching about the reality we're in, not about things that most of them you probably won't need in life. Like teach about not necessarily the wisdom of Kabbalah, as we might talk about it here, but talk about the fundamental principles of nature. We're all connected, we're all interdependent, we're driven by an egoistic force in every single one of us. Connection is rooted in our DNA, we're wired to connect, and there's a reason for that. The reason is purely Kabbalistic, maybe we'll get into it today, but even these basic things are not taught in school. So I would even start with that, start with the basics. So why, Bogdan? I don't know. I have the same question as you do. Let's keep going for some more questions. I'll start off with a few quick ones just to get us rolling. Okay, so what else do we have here? Is there a difference? Way of the World is asking, is there a difference between Jews and non-Jews according to Kabbalah? Depends what you're asking about. According to Kabbalah, the only difference between a Jew in this world and a non-Jew in this world is their heritage. There is no difference in terms of their spiritual potential, especially today. Every single person who has been awakened to find meaning, to find purpose, according to Kabbalah, is called, if you know it, shout it out. And if not, I will draw it out, is called or in Hebrew, Yisrael. And I'm not talking about the land, the nation, the nationality, the country, nothing like that. I'm talking simply about a desire. Yisrael originally is built from two words, Yashar, El. Yashar means direct, straight. And El means creator or God, however you want to call it. So Israel is a person that has a desire to reach this force of nature. That's it. And that is the only differentiation that there is, internal desire. Okay, what else do we have here? Is Kabbalah a method to get enlightened? That's a question from M. So M, depends, I don't really know, how you define enlightened, but I guess if enlightened comes from the word light, then Kabbalah is the original method of enlightenment, discovered, and I say discovered because it wasn't invented, it was simply discovered, almost 6,000 years ago by someone that lived by the name of Adam. And like you, he was searching for meaning. He had a spiritual awakening, and he found the wisdom of Kabbalah. And he found the force which in Kabbalah we call light. So I guess you could say it is a method of enlightenment. He discovered how to interact with that force. He was actually the first Kabbalist. A Kabbalist is one that has built an internal device to interact with the concealed laws of nature, with the concealed laws of reality. So anyway, I guess, yes, the answer is Kabbalah is a method to get enlightened. Okay, Question from Lisa, Bible and Torah. Same message. So I'm not sure, Lisa, what you refer to by Torah. Are you talking about the Pentateuch? The Bible, the Old Testament is built of the Torah, the prophets, and the writings, Ktuvim, Torah, Nevi'im, Ktuvim. All of the Old Testament is all Kabbalistic text. It's all written in code according to the law of root and branch, meaning every single word there is written not about this world, but about the spiritual reality. And it's written according to a code, to a language called the language of roots and branches. So all of the authentic Kabbalistic text, not just what I mentioned, not just the Torah, the prophets, and the writings, Ktubim, I think it's called the writings in English, but also all of Kabbalistic text, including Talmud, including Mishnah, including the Zohar, of course, including the Book of Creation, any text written by a Kabbalist, basically. Let's see what else. Do you know of any drama films which are based on Kabbalah? No, I don't. I do know that the film The Matrix, then the creators of it, they learned Kabbalistic concepts before making it, and it really is based on a very simple Kabbalistic concept, that it is that we are living in a like dream reality, meaning we are in a certain state which we are unconscious of, we're unaware of, and the reality we live in now is in a way kind of simulation. So you could say, yes, that's what I do know. I don't know any other films that are based on Kabbalah. Apologies, Victor. What else do we have here? Looking to Facebook. Come on, Facebook, you got to catch up. YouTube is already killing with questions, and here we have only just a few. Okay, Heidi is asking, how do you resolve a disagreement if one person is approaching it considering the whole or community or both to be win-win, but the other remains selfish and not for the community and the greater good? How do you resolve it? I don't know exactly what situation you're talking about, but absolutely the first scenario you described is the correct way to approach anything, from a sense of whole, from the sense of the greater good, which is a sense of connection. Now, I wouldn't say that, politicians today or people are actually following this, even though their words express it, but internally they're just thinking of how to destroy their opponent, and this is the case in many situations that people are putting on this, fake. Hold on, my mic just dropped into my shirt. 1 moment, sorry. So you're probably. 1 sec. Let me just sort this out. Okay. All right. So in most cases, people who are putting on that act, I mean, not in most cases, I don't want to generalize, but in many cases, they're not really driven by that motive. They're driven by a motive to destroy their opponent, and they find the best way to do that is to say that they're thinking from the greater good. More questions. Let's see what we have here. Okay. Where did Kabbalist Evert is asking, where did the Kabbalists get their knowledge? Great question, Evert. Answer is simple. Research. If, let's say, I'm a scientist and I'm researching, I don't know, Newton's laws of motion, so where will I get my knowledge from? I'll start experimenting. First of all, I have maybe, a theory, and then I can start examining this theory if it works by doing experimentation. I can throw a ball and measure its distance and its velocity, etc., etc. And then I can reach conclusions, and I can verify if they're correct or not through examining reality. So you could say Kabbalah is similar to that. A Kabbalist is one that developed an additional internal sense that is like a measuring device through which he interacts with reality. So anything, all of the knowledge that Kabbalists attain, they don't acquire through intellectual means. So you can study thousands of books of Kabbalah and be a great scholar of Kabbalah, know all of the writings off by heart Will that make you a Kabbalist? No. It will not, and it will not give you attainment of the deepest Kabbalistic meaning, and it won't give you attainment of this hidden force of reality, the causal forces, that cause our reality. It will not give you that. The only way you will get that is if you follow the direction, follow the method of the Kabbalists. They have a clear like starter pack and advanced pack, and basically that you have everything today in order to advance. And just like on our KabU platform, that's a platform built exactly in order to evolve spiritually. And maybe, Rachel, maybe you can post a link to the Question Your Reality page. So Rachel's going to post a link, which is to our new KabU platform. I'm kind of being a little bit reserved because we haven't really officially launched it, so it's a secret. But we can give you the link that Rachel is going to post. As I think it's the Question Your Reality 4 page, Rachel. And you can check out a free course there on KabU, Question Your Reality. And not just check it out, you can also engage with other people in it, which is great, just like here. And that's where, back to the question, that's where Kabbalists attain their knowledge from. They get it through attainment, nothing else, nothing less than actually attaining. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Whoa, there's a lot of questions, and it's great. So I have questions here and here and here. That's why I'm looking around everywhere. Do we have Spanish translation? That's a question from Louise. I think we have some of this content is in Spanish as well. Search Kabbalah in Spanish, Bnei Baruch, and I think you'll find it. Alejandro is asking, does the soul have an end? What do you mean by that, Alejandro? If you can clarify, what do you mean an end for a soul? Does it end sometime? You meaning it exists now and then it no longer exists? Is that what you mean? So please clarify. I'll follow up on that question. And what else do we have here? Okay. Let's see. A question from Patricia, I guess following up on what I said about the KabU. So is this course only for newbies, or can we all join the class? It's that specific class that Rachel posted is an introductory course to Kabbalah. So if you're already in KabU, then you're set. If you're not, then you can definitely join it. There's great depth there. I guarantee, even if you've been studying for a while, if you go in there, I'm sure you'll find greater depth, because Kabbalistic content is always from a deeper layer of reality. It has multiple layers in it. And when you change, then suddenly the content has new meaning for you, even the same content. So I recommend you check it out. It's a free course, so why not? Let's see. What else do we have? Okay, a question from Larry Peacock. If the Creator started Earth for humans, why do we have a desire to go elsewhere, like heaven? That's a great question. We all have that desire. Well, I don't know, you know what? I'm not sure everyone has that desire. Because a lot of people are satisfied with this life. A lot of people are atheists. They don't believe in anything. In fact, I used to be an atheist too, to such an extent that I wasn't in any kind of depression, but I just felt, you live, so you live, you die, whatever. And if you die, you probably won't even know that you're dead, so well, who cares? It was kind of a very apathic approach to life. So not everyone has a desire to go necessarily to heaven. But then what happened to me, at least, maybe you can identify with that, Larry, is that I actually came across this movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? Maybe you guys have seen it. And the movie completely blew my mind, because it suddenly, it kind of touched a point inside of me that knew there had to be something more, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And then that movie, from kind of, it's a bit new agey, but it also has a lot of science in it as well. And I like science. So I was into the science part, that basically they talk about our perception of reality and how it's limited, and how there's the reality is unknown actually until we interact with it, and when we do, then it collapses into a certain state. It's basically the principles of quantum mechanics. So when you measure something, you interact with it and then you influence it. So all of reality is after we already interact with it. So we don't really know what reality is, right? When I look at something, I don't really know what that thing is. So I'm looking at, my phone, for example, but I'm already interacting with it and I'm getting some kind of response back to my eye. It hits my eye retainer and then it translates it into something in my mind. And I see it as this, but what is this actually? I can't really know. I just know it's some form of energy, right? That's all I know. But what is it really? Can't say. And that movie, then, I'm not, promoting this movie or anything, although check it out if you want. I was so amazed by it because suddenly I saw something that, there is something beyond reality. That movie actually pushed me to go study physics. And then I later on went to university and I studied physics, and I wanted to go to the best place in Israel. I live in Israel, and I researched all the universities, and I found that the Hebrew University in Jerusalem is the top standards of physics, even not too far, in the top whatever in the world. And I went there and I started studying, and I was still into kind of finding what you described as heaven, but I didn't give it a name. I just said, there has to be something more, something beyond what we can see and feel and touch and taste. There has to be something more to reality. And I thought I'd find it in physics, and I started studying physics and the atoms and all of the laws of physics, basically. So I ended up completing my Bachelor's of Science in Physics, but by the time I completed it, I already didn't think I'd find any answers there, especially one time when I came to my professor, who was an acclaimed physicist, and I asked him something about reality, and then he referred me to a book, Why People Believe in Weird Things, which was pretty funny coming from a scientist, because if you're a true scientist, then you should question everything, because most likely what you know now is going to be found to be, if not untrue, then at least inaccurate. That's how science is. Whatever we knew 100 years ago, we found to be inaccurate. Whatever we knew 1,000 years ago, we found to be probably completely wrong. And whatever we know now, we're probably going to find in a certain while that's also inaccurate. So that answer was really, made me rethink if physics is where I'll find that true something that I was looking for. And then I found, I continued searching for that, for more stuff about that movie Bleep, and I came across this video with Kabbalist Dr. Michael Lightman. I had no idea who he was. I just saw, a Kabbalist with a scientist of Bleep, and I thought, okay. It was on that platform called Kaza. So the 90s geeks will know what I'm talking about. Kaza Lite, something like that, some torrent, whatever. And then I downloaded it and I saw it, and I was just blown away completely, just the way that he described reality. It just hit the exact spaces, that there is another layer of reality, and it's a layer that we're not interacting with, and it's the governing forces of everything we see and feel and touch, and we live in the world of outcomes, and that we can rise to that level and discover the true meaning of it, etc., etc. And I think, still answering you, Larry, but I think we're covering it kind of for a lot of people, that our desire of ours to go elsewhere, like heaven, and some people translate this desire into, escaping reality through drugs or other things, which is unfortunate, because that point inside that's pushing them to find something more is looking for a deeper level of fulfillment. They end up trying to fulfill it with, hallucinations or whatever. But it stems from an internal point that what I see in reality isn't enough for me. And the reason why we have that desire is because what we have in this world isn't, in fact, enough. And that desire is an awakening of a point that's leading us to evolve to a new level of reality, to a new level of evolution, right? Like the caterpillar and butterfly example, which I sometimes use. That, when a caterpillar transitions into a butterfly, it goes through a fundamental change in its inner mechanisms. All the cells change their roles there, and it's like it's changing an operating system. And those who want to go elsewhere, who have this feeling inside, there are those that have already been awakened internally, and they know that there is something more to find. So that's why we have that desire, Larry. and I'm glad you have it, and you should be too. Let's see what else we have. Lightning Now is asking, how can we get started with work with others in a group of 10? After which course can we join the group? So I guess you're referring to a group of students who study together. For many of you, this concept may be foreign or unknown, so I'll explain it briefly. There is a principle in Kabbalah which is called a minyan, and the minyan is basically a group of 10 people through which together they can raise a collective prayer. That's what it basically means. And in our studies, in KabU, for example, then at a certain point, we start studying together. Actually, from the very beginning, we try to build a community. I'll actually tell you some more KabU secrets. Maybe we'll end up deleting this session, so don't tell anyone. We're also going to have, on KabU, we're going to have, for all of the KabU members that join, we're going to start in a couple of weeks to have kind of an exclusive session, so KabU members will be able to join this session on Zoom and interact on Zoom, so I'll see you guys, etc. And then after this session ends, we'll continue to another, say, half an hour, 45 minutes, with kind of a private Q&A session. So exciting stuff. I'm really excited, and hopefully through these weekly sessions we can get to know each other, we can create like a community, not from advanced levels of study, but from the very beginning, because I think the most important thing when you enter the study is that you plant yourself in this environment that's filled with minerals, and it's rich, and it nurtures you and fulfills you. And when you have other people who are also looking for the same thing, it amplifies whatever you have, and it's very powerful. Even if you don't necessarily want to, if you're not social, or if you don't want to interact, you don't need to. But the fact that there are other people, even if you just read their comments, even now, go into the comment section and start reading it, it'll amplify what you have inside. So good stuff. Let's see what else we have here. Let's see what else. Does altering, okay, a question from Yusuf Moko. Does altering one's future create an avalanche of negative effect on others? That's a good question. You're basically, I guess you're imagining like a whole system of interdependence, and when one's future changes, alters, then it could, I don't know why you're saying negatively, maybe it just impacts. It could be positive, it could be negative, but I guess that's where you're coming from, right? So it's like, imagine a system of magnets that are perfectly placed on a board, and they're all kind of in place, and if you move one, then it obviously affects everyone else, right? So that's what you're asking. So the answer is it does have an effect on others, but it does not have a negative effect. On the contrary, it has a positive effect. And why is that? Why does it have a positive effect? Let's pop over again to the drawing board. The reason why it has a positive effect when you alter your future, I guess you're talking about spiritual development, right? So imagine this. Imagine a perfected state of humanity, of reality, of everything. Perfect. This state, according to Kabbalah, is in existence, and it's called the soul of Adam. All right? And it's a state of perfection. It's a collective soul, the only thing that was created, the same thing that we are the shattering of. So we're the shattering of this soul. We're the broken pieces of this soul, right? And we're sensed as, we sense ourselves as individuals. What wraps these pieces of our soul is called ego. Inside that ego, we all have this point. That's the same point that I mentioned before to Larry, that wants to discover something like heaven. It actually, all it does is it wants to return to its root. That's all it wants, right? And this point, when a person begins to alter their future, meaning it begins to reconnect to its corrected state, then actually what it does, it sends like a ripple effect in the entire system. It strengthens the entire system, and it strengthens, you could say, well, it's called, in Kabbalah, it's called the surrounding light. Okay, so each person has a state of inner light and a state of surrounding light. Inner light is already when you interact with your desire, and this energy, this infinite energy, in Kabbalah it's called light. And that's inner light is when you learn how to correctly interact with it. That's the wisdom of Kabbalah. And surrounding light is your interaction with the light while you're still not directly interacting with it. And everyone is under the influence of surrounding light. It's the driving force of reality, of everything in reality, all the evolution, the development, even the emergence of life, 3.8 billion years ago. It's all driven by surrounding light. It's a driving force that's pushing everything to evolve. That's how life emerged. Scientists know the conditions in which it emerged. They know from when it emerged how it evolved. They don't know where it came from. They don't know how it suddenly emerged. Right? They've been trying to reconstruct those same conditions unsuccessfully. There was never a formation of life from inanimate. Scientists were never able to do that. They tried all kinds of stuff. They thought, okay, they find worms in garbage, so let's let garbage rot. Maybe that's where life emerges. They didn't know that there were eggs of worms there, or whatever. And they tried all kinds of things to generate life from nothingness. They never succeeded until this day. And Kabbalah says very simply, the driving force of everything is this state of surrounding light. It's the future potential state that we're being drawn to. By the way, based on that principle, all of the New Age methods like the law of attraction, etc., that's what they talk of. They speak of, there is a potential state and we want to draw it upon us. It's based on a 6,000-year-old Kabbalistic principle, which is called surrounding light. Although the error in those methods, like the law of attraction, is that it doesn't work for most people because they're unable to fake desires which they don't naturally have. And in order for this to seemingly work, you need to have it come from within. And for some people it seemingly works and they share about it, etc. It's because they naturally have that desire and they just become aware of it. But if if you don't want something and you start telling yourself you want it, you can do it until, all day long. It won't necessarily make you suddenly want it. There are bigger forces here at play. That's basically what I'm trying to say here. We won't go more into that. It's a different topic. So back to Yusuf's question, does altering one's future create an avalanche of effects on others? So it does. So when you are here, let's say this is you, Yusuf, this is you, and when you start connecting to this system, you actually start strengthening the intensity, the power of the system on everything in reality. And as a result of that, what you're doing is it's like, you could say in a way, you're injecting more light into the entire system. So by correcting yourself, you're correcting the entire world, which is a beautiful thing in Kabbalah. It's beautiful because it says that a person is considered a small world. There's everything in the world. It also exists inside of you. All the evil that's out there, all the good, all the bad, everything you see outside are simply inner qualities that you have inside. And if you did not have these qualities, you would not see them outside of you. You wouldn't be able to, right? So when you start correcting your inner qualities, then you correct the entire world, basically. Okay, we won't go into that as well. A lot of great questions, a lot of great topics, but let's kind of jump around, and it is a Q&A session, so let's take some more questions. There are so many already. Okay, a question from Jetsi. Are the creator and nature the same, or did the creator create nature? Great question. If you're familiar with Gematria is a Kabbalistic, it's part of the Kabbalistic method. It's a relationship between letters and numbers. That's Gematria. And according to Gematria, Elokim, which is God, and Hateva, which is nature, they're both equal in Gematria. They both have the same numerical value of 86, Elokim and Hateva, and they're both equivalent. They're the same. So when you talk about nature, and I'm not talking about the leaves and the trees or the wind, I'm talking about the entire nature. So the entire nature is the force of the Creator, basically. Okay. Let's see. Okay, a question from Shannon Crocker. Gil, could you speak about intention? Should we think of intention most of the day? So I don't know what you mean by think of intention. Basically, I assume what you're asking is, is intention something that we should be focusing on during the day? Well, like I said before, intention is probably the most powerful force in reality. It has impact on everything, even though scientists haven't found yet necessarily. There are all kinds of studies about this and that, but they haven't really found how intention impacts reality. But according to Kabbalah, when you have an intention, you're basically sending a ripple effect to the entire system, which also makes sense because your intention is a thought and it's a form of energy and it interacts with reality. So anything that interacts with reality, you can assume that it has impact on it, right? So maybe you want to ask, what should the intention be? So basically, you could say this sums it up, what I answered to Yusuf. So your intention should be to reconnect to this corrected state up here. That's it. And everything that you do all day long, if you have that in the back of your mind, it doesn't mean, leave everything and go think about it on some hill. No, according to Kabbalah, you've got to live in this world. There's a reason for it, including all of the obligations of it, of having a job, having a family, etc. But in the back of your mind, you always, like a mother, I don't know if you have children, but imagine that your child is going through some kind of important experience in their life, and you have to go to work. So you go to work and you do your stuff, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking of your child all the time, right? So that's the intention in Kabbalah. It's like this place in the back of your mind that you train yourself to be aligned to constantly think and engage in this force of connection. Why? Because when you do that, then you're attracting upon yourself that same light that I discussed before, the light, the surrounding light. You're attracting goodness onto yourself. You're bringing not just yourself, also yourself, but you're bringing the entire human system into balance. That's what you're doing. And you could say that lack of intention, or lack of the correct intention, because an intention can be an intention for anything, right? I can intend to harm someone, or to do good to someone, or to do good to myself. And that's our natural intention, by the way. Our natural intention is to do good to ourselves, right? Anything we do, any movement we make is simply a calculation of what will give me the most benefit at the minimum effort. Now, those of you who've been studying for a while already completely understand this, and those who maybe are watching this now for the first time are what? I don't do everything for my own well-being, for my own sake. Well, I challenge you to find an action that is not driven for self-benefit. Even an action that's seemingly goodness is still driven by self-benefit, and we're not going to go further into that. I'll go back to the question from Shannon about intention. And okay, so Shannon's already asking a follow-up. Is intention and correction similar? Intention leads to correction. Okay, so with the right intention, you're basically bringing yourself, the entire system into balance, and yes, so that's correcting your desire. I'll also say that lack of the correct intention, that's what I started saying, lack of the correct intention, which is a lack of the intention to rebuild that shattered state of connection between all the parts of the soul, of the collective soul. Lack of that intention is what brings all harm to reality, on the individual, on the collective. A good example of that is COVID. COVID is simply nature's response for lack of balance. You know, if a system is going out of balance, then it needs to respond to bring itself back to equilibrium. It's very simple laws of science. So think of COVID as a way that nature is bringing itself back into balance, right? What is it doing? It's pushing everyone to stay at home, to lower consumption, to be considerate of others, or at least to think of others, because you got to wear a mask or not, or wherever your country you're in. It made us rethink pretty much everything. How we consume, why, what do we really need, what's really important in life. It really put us into serious, meaningful questions about reality, about life, about our world, about our own life, right? Which is great. It's beautiful. And that's the result of such a pandemic. Now, does it mean that humanity has to experience a terrible state of a pandemic with, millions of people dead already in order to experience that? No, it does not have to do that. It does not. It can experience that through a path of light. This is an example of which is called in Kabbalah the path of pain, meaning we're always advancing towards balance. But when we aren't taking that step forward, then nature pushes us. That's it. And the push feels with pain. You know, it feels like a pandemic, or it feels like other things. And basically, what we do, and actually I even mean, the 200-300 people that are watching this right now, and the few thousands or whatever that will watch this later on, what we do, and I say we because you're the ones that have already been awakened. This spark in you has awakened. And because it has awakened, you have the ability to bring the entire world into balance with your intention. So I know it's a big responsibility, but it's also a beautiful one and a very, very fulfilling one. I would say the greatest fulfillment there is in the world. Okay, let's see. What else? Okay, Virginia is asking, can I pray to the Creator? I was always taught to pray to God the Father. So Virginia, it doesn't really matter, what you want to call it, or what your upbringing was, or what religion you're from. It doesn't matter. The Creator or God, or however you want to call it, the force of nature is not limited to any form of external wrapping, you could say. A true prayer is a prayer to that force, which is a force of love, a force of giving, a force of absolute, infinite fulfillment. And if you want to interact with that force, that's considered a prayer. And you can name it whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Okay, what else do we have here? Okay. So there's a question here from Artifications. How can I join attain? You can join KabU, and then in KabU, after a while of study, then a few months, then you can, if you want, be assigned to working in a group of attain, etc. Okay. Timothy, in the process of correction, what changes? Is it only the intention or only the desire? What should I pay attention to in my daily experience? Okay, great. So Timothy, you're asking, tell me how to do it correctly, tell me how to activate it, which is a great question, because you want to maximize your time, your investment, which is absolutely correct. I agree with you. So I'll tell you this. The desire is constant. It's unchanging. It's the only thing that was created, a will to receive pleasure, nothing else. And the only thing that needs to change is how we use that desire. And how we use that desire is the intention, right? So you can, just to give an example from, this world. So imagine the scenario of a knife cutting flesh. It could be a horrible act of murder, or it could be a beautiful act of healing, a physician operating on someone and healing them, giving them life. The action is the same, the intention is very different, and the result is different as well, of course. So you should pay attention to your intention. And I can already tell you this: your natural intention is egoistic self-fulfillment, and you don't have to worry about that, because it's natural. That's what you have. So no one can, it says, go to the creator that made me. It's a saying, go to the artist that made me, right? He gave me this intention, he gave me these thoughts. What can you do, right? So in Kabbalah, it's very practical. No one is demanding anything that you don't have. No one is saying be an angel, be a saint, because you can't. You're driven by an egoistic intention. But what Kabbalah says, that it gives you the light as the remedy. So the light is what corrects. So Timothy, if you want to take your implementation to the next level, then I suggest that you try and focus as much as you can on having the right intention, which is, to put it simply, to return to the source. And the intention can change, and it will change all the time. You'll scrutinize what that means, and does it mean that I need to connect because connection mimics the upper state, or do I need to think of the benefit of the others maybe, or of the creator, or of myself, or what? There's a lot of scrutinies here, a lot of kind of thoughts into this, and trying to find the right intention is a great intention. So I'll leave you with that, Timothy. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, so Edward is asking, how does KabU, I guess you mean by that, how does Kabbalah approach the idea of instant forgiveness as is available through Buddhism, Christianity, by a sudden realization of one's true nature? So Edward, unfortunately, I cannot respond about Buddhism or Christianity because I don't know, but I can tell you about Kabbalah. So how does Kabbalah treat forgiveness? How does, so the question is, how does Kabbalah approach the idea of instant forgiveness, and is it available? So it is available, and it stems from a very simple fact. There is none else other than that single force of nature. And this is a really, really powerful concept in Kabbalah, really powerful. And it's not easy to work with, and it's constant work to find how to work with that. But what it basically means is that everything outside of you is simply that force of reality, that force of nature. All the people that you see, and beings and animals and plants, all of that is none else besides him. It's none else other than this force of the light. So when you realize that, then you realize that whoever you feel is causing you harm, it's actually the creator. It doesn't mean that you need to respond in this world in a way that puts you in any danger, or that puts you in a state of being trampled upon, etc. You don't need to be submissive. You can respond in this world as the laws of this world. So if someone's trying to harm you, then of course you have to prevent that with any means possible, and so and so. But your internal approach to that is very different. And your internal approach is saying, who is that person that's trying to harm me? What's behind that person? It's simply the force of nature. It's the force of reality. And if you scrutinize that through every incident, through every experience you have, then what you'll find is that your perception and your experiences as a result of that, they begin to change for the better, of course. Let's see what else we have here. Wow, we only have 10 minutes left. Flew by the time. We rose above time, because in spirituality there is no time and space. Okay, so Asan is asking, can you tell me the practices in Kabbalah, like breathing or enchanting words? So, yes, I can tell you. Let me show you. Ready? Okay, I'm going to do it now. I'm doing it. That's one practice. Another practice is that was intention, by the way. You don't need anything, just to intend. Another practice is, I have a booklet here with Kabbalistic texts, and this is another practical action. Now, I'm not just reading text here, right? You're saying, okay, I can read any book. No, with the text here, my intention, this is a text written by Bala Sulam, author of the interpretation of the Book of Zohar, a great Kabbalist, the biggest Kabbalist of the last century, owner of the ladder. His name is Sulam because he built a ladder to bring anyone that wants to find spirituality to be able to find it. And whatever he wrote, and I'm reading a writing of his right now. Actually, it's a nice quote that I opened here. It's in Hebrew. Let me try and simultaneously translate it. It says this. The extent of hearing the Creator, it depends on the extent of cravings and yearnings in a person's prayer. And when a person feels these cravings, he will know that the Creator hears him. And with this knowledge, he is strengthened in opening his heart, because there is no greater privilege when the Creator hears him. Okay, so this is just an example. I just randomly opened this and it kind of seemed suitable, so I read it to you. But really, the action of connecting to authentic text is simply to delve into the place where the Kabbalist wrote from. So when a Kabbalist, this is answering you, Asan, about the practices. So the first practice was intention. That's the main one, because everything else I'm going to tell you now are methods to be in the right intention. The camera moved here a little bit. Okay, so we were talking about the book, for example. So it's very simple. It's a simple mechanism. And things should be simple, because if they're not simple, then maybe there's no need to talk about them. So this is you, and this is a book that you're reading from. Now, this book is authentic Kabbalistic text, and the authentic text was written by a Kabbalist when he attained a state here from the spiritual. Right? So he's actually describing and talking about spiritual objects only. And when you read this book, and your intention is this, the spiritual objects that the Kabbalist wrote about, then the result of that is simple. Light. Light from this potential state. Right? Like we spoke about before. It's very simple. So that's another practical example. And I think the most powerful one, Asan, is what you're doing now in the chats. And that's connection. And the reason for that is this. Because when you start connecting with, again, all of this is just a drive for intention. But when you start connecting, and you can even do this now, when you're in the chat right now, when you're reading people's comments and you're interacting with one another, and your intention in this is to mimic this state, that's your intention. This is probably the most powerful method there is in Kabbalah, connection, more than anything else, more than the text and more than anything. Because in that, you're mimicking between you the state of your future and corrected state. So that's connection. So I didn't mean to talk about KabU today, but it fits right in. So that is KabU. We've built an environment for you to be able to connect to other people, to the authentic books and texts, to amplify the intention that you come with, and to be able to bring that as a positive force into your life. So Rachel, maybe you can post a link again. It's a link to a free course within our KabU platform. And I will maybe mention again that starting from about 2 weeks from now, we'll have these sessions available for KabU members to join on Zoom, kind of an exclusive ability to interact, and I'll see you guys on the screen, which I really want to see all of you. And also we'll continue to an exclusive Q&A session when the broadcast ends. So let's see what else we have here. Okay, there are so many great questions, and it's really difficult to choose. Okay, Kevin is asking, are intentions not sent from the Creator then? Great question. So it's a question of freedom of choice, Kevin, right? Because on the one hand, if there's only that force in us, then everything is Him, and we're driven by this force. On the other hand, then where's our freedom of choice, right? So let me answer it like this. It takes two to tango. So it's always a result of you interacting with that force. And half of that is your responsibility. The response will always come, but you need to reach out. And at the end, you'll discover that that too came from the Creator. But you can only discover that as after the action. Before the action, if you won't do it, no one will. It's tricky because spirituality is above time. So, okay, let's see what else we got here. Maybe another quick one. I appreciate all of the comments in the chats that I'm seeing for gratefulness, etc. I also want to tell you that I'm grateful too for these sessions, for feeling your desire and being here with you. Many of the names I already recognize because you come weekly, and it's great to see you here and just interact and basically connect. So I'm grateful for you too. Let's conclude with that. Last tiny question from Alejandro. Because I think he also asked before, I didn't follow up on that, but the question is, does the system of the world have an end? It has an end, and it's called the end of correction. And the end of correction is, let's imagine it for a second. Let's imagine this state. It's this state that we are all in perfect harmony and connection between us, just like a single human body that works in complete harmony. That's the state that we're in, that we don't just interact with each other, that we actually feel and sense each other. Not what we imagine you to think, but actually as being a part of me. And then later on we discover that we're not parts of each other, that we are actually one. We are one. So the end of correction is that final state. And there's something beyond that as well, but we'll keep that for next session maybe. So it was great to be here, and I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the session, then please click the like button, click the subscribe button. And that's it for today. So I'm Gil Shear. This was Kabbalah Explained Simply. A great thanks to Rachel and Ruth for on the questions. And stay tuned for the great transition live on Kabbalahinfo. And we'll see you guys next week. Next week is going to be an awesome session, I hope. I hope I'll get it done by then. I'm preparing. Well, I'll tell you the few sessions. Actually, you know what? Let me ask you guys what you want to talk about. First of all, if you have any thoughts about additional topics you want me to cover in Kabbalah Explained Simply, write them in the chat. I'll take a look at it later, so just write anything. What I'm thinking about is I'm thinking of doing an entire crash course for Kabbalah in maybe 45 minutes, a full course to bring everyone up to speed. You know, what we would usually cover in 10 weeks, to do that in 45 minutes to an hour. That's one topic. If you want that, then write it in the chat. Another option is to cover the stages of spiritual awakening, because when people are spiritually awakened, in many cases they don't identify it, they don't really know what they're going through, and maybe just to map that out. That's another potential topic. Another potential topic is dreams, and of course many more. So if you want to chip into future potential topics, then write it in the chat, or if you like any of the ones I mentioned, then write that too. And that's it for today. So it was great to be here. Thank you very much. I'm Gil Shir. This was Kabbalah Explained Simply. See you guys next week.